Yes, hey there. Mortaza, are you going to talk?
Yes, doctor, I want your permission to talk, of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, doctor, because no one sent me a presentation or names
So what
of
is this?
presenters because they are busy. I've made some simple modifications to introduce materials in such a way.
Oh,
If you
okay.
want me to read or explain, I don't have any
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, you
Decision is
can.
yours.
So,
Decision is yours.
no, that's okay, Mortaza. You can make it, and I appreciate that. But next time, I mean next week, you gotta
Yes,
you have the list, and you gotta invite those who haven't presented yet.
that's all right.
Yeah.
That's
If
all right.
no one is ready, then they gotta just face a
I
consequence of it.
I can make it next week, doctor.
Oh,
To
okay.
make up to make it up.
Yeah. No, we have probably 10 people who haven't had presentation. I'm going to distribute this opportunity to everyone to have their saying in the class. Otherwise, I receive a lot of messages from those who have presented, and they're asking me to give them another opportunity to present it again. I usually say no because I like everyone to participate and I like everyone to contribute to the class. Okay, Mortaza, now you go ahead, please.
Yes, yes, doctor. Yes, doctor.
So, do
It's
you want
okay.
me to make you as a presenter so that you have a full control of your slides?
There isn't any problem, doctor. Decision is yours. You have
Oh,
the
that's
authority.
okay. There you go, Mortaza.
Yes, doctor.
You can adjust the
It's all right.
slides.
First of all, we have in the second part of approaches and methods in literature. Yes, a special 3.3 special purpose approaches and methods. Yes, page 77. Yes, just a minute, doctor, please. Okay. I can't maximize it. Just a minute.
You are now unmuted.
Mortaza, you're okay?
Yeah. Yes, doctor, I'm okay, of course. Yes. Yes, doctor.
So
The
can you
special
can you start?
Okay, okay. Yes, the special purpose approaches and methods. Among the factors of promoting the need for approaches that went beyond communicative language teaching were the following. Yes. The internalization of education. Yes. A growing numbers of international students in English-speaking countries, such as, for example, Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom, were studying in colleges, universities, and other tertiary institutions. They needed to acquire the language skills to pursue their studies in English. This is one of the factors that I've just mentioned. Yes. Two, of the second point, resettlement. Following the Vietnam War and conflicts in other parts of the world, large numbers of refugees were admitted to the United States, Australia, and other countries. Many had no knowledge of English and needed intensive instruction to prepare them for life in their new countries. The third factor, immigration, which is one of the most important factors actually. Large numbers of immigrants also settled in English-speaking countries, and the schools had to provide support that would enable school-age learners to follow mainstream education. Fourth, globalization, which is one of the elements that we mentioned in the first chapter of this book, as English took on a greater role in international trade, business, commerce, and travel. Millions of learners needed language skills for these purposes. So
Very good.
language here for purpose, used for specific purpose. Science and technology. English was now the main language used for participant publications in the fields of science and technology, requiring advanced reading skills for many learners. The sixth one, the,
Uh-huh.
the privatization of English language teaching. The growing demand for English language skills has led to the private sector taking, which was mentioned also actually in previous lectures or presentations by one of my colleagues, taking a greater responsibility for the provision of language teaching through private institutes, different kinds, that different learners of all ages an opportunity to develop communicative skills in English.
Very good.
Yes.
Mortaza, thank you very much for your take on this section, focusing on a special purpose approaches and methods. And everyone now has a good picture of the multiple purposes for which an individual wishes to learn English. In University of Mazandaran, we've got 700 international students, and around 300 students are learning Persian to study in University of Mazandaran. Can you see it? They are coming to the Persian Language Center. This is where I am at the head of that department. They come to me and they like to learn Persian. And I have 40 PhD student and PhD holder in Persian education. They are teaching these Iraqis or Yemenis or and other countries, like, for example, Chinese, like Korean, like Japanese students, to learn Persian. After they have learned Persian language, they attend their master's classes, for example, in law, in engineering, in basic science, in art, in psychology, in sociology, to study. So they learn Persian for the sake of what? For the sake of education.
Of course.
And there are millions of students in English language countries. Like I myself, I went to Australia, got my master's and my PhD there. So
Great.
I am Iranian. I learned English. I passed the exam. I got my IELTS. I got my TOEFL. I got my scholarship, and I went to Australia. And I was studying there in English. There are many Iraqis students studying in Iran, probably 100,000, and 700 Iraqi students are in University of Mazandaran. There are hundreds of other or hundred thousands of other Iraqis who are a student in Iran, different universities. Some of them, they are studying English. Some of them, they are studying Persian. And some of them, they pass Persian courses. Then they attend their master or specialized courses. Can you see it? There are multiple purposes from which people around the globe learning English. And there are many people in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, in Kuwait, in Qatar, in what different other Arabic speaking countries, they are learning Arabic and they are studying their own major in Arabic university in Arabic countries. So I guess now it is a very good picture you have in your mind to understand why many people around the globe learning English. Does anyone have any questions or comment? If not, we'll get Mortaza to continue. Okay, it seems not. Mortaza, can you continue?
Yes, English specific. The language teaching profession from the 1950s and 60s recognized that many learners needed English in order to use it in a specific occupational or educational settings. This is one of the points that you have just mentioned, Doctor. Occupational or educational purposes. They are very important. For these
Exactly.
learners, it would be more efficient to teach them the specific kinds of language and communicative skills needed or particular roles that of an engineering student, nurse, etc., rather than just to concentrate on more and more general English. So they have specific purposes. They have different varieties or categories of uses English as a foreign language. This led to the approach known as English for specific purposes, or ESP. ESP is not a method, actually. It's an approach, not a method, but rather other approach to design curriculum that is built around learners' communicative needs. Yes, in ESP courses, the communicative approach is generally used, but the materials themselves are tailored to specific needs. Yes, there are actually some differences might include here for English as a specific purpose. They might arise here. Some of those differences are mentioned. We can notice them: differences in vocabulary choice, differences in the grammar, differences in the kinds of texts commonly occurring, differences in functions, differences in the need for particular skills, and different functions. So we have differences and functions. ESP courses soon began to appear addressing the language needs of university students, nurses, engineers, restaurant staff, doctors, hotel staff, airline, pilots, and so on. The methodology used to teach these courses wasn't prescribed, although it was generally based on CLT, also reflected the skill based on and performance based approaches, which were described in Chapter 2. Yes, suggests that the influence of these approaches was reflected in the design of courses like this. Now we move to the next one, which is competency. Any comment, any question, please?
Very good, Mortaza. That's about English for a specific purpose. I wrote two books, English for a specific purpose. One focuses on computer engineering, computer science, and IT. Another is for physical education, sport management. If you look at the book mainly focuses on engineering, computer science, and
Very
IT. Another book is focusing on sport management, means anything related to a sport content, sport management, and that book is specifically for students of sport management. This is called English for a specific purpose. That's one of the purposes of learning English.
good.
Thank you.
Yes,
Does
doctor.
anyone
Is
have
it permitted?
questions? Yes,
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 doctor.
Youssef.
Yes, doctor. In ESB, I will mention to the role of the teacher in this approach. Actually,
The role of a
yeah,
teacher.
yes,
So,
doctor.
are you going to discuss it, or you want me to unpack it for you?
Yes, doctor. I discuss it.
Uh, so,
Teacher here is in ESB approach. He called as a provider of input. In many situations here, the teacher expected to control the class, provide information about the schools and language, to control the activities actually. And
Uh-huh.
also here the teacher maybe as a facilitator, the
Facilitator, exactly.
teacher, yes, class rather than control the class.
So, Yusuf,
Yes,
let me open the lock of your mind in terms of English for specific purpose or English for general purpose. So, what you've been discussing was striking English for general purpose. When we say English for general purpose, it means that you're supposed to teach student listening, speaking, reading, and writing, as well as vocabulary and
yes,
grammar.
doctor, the first
So when we
concept.
say English for a specific purpose, it means that you and I, as teachers, should have that particular or a specific knowledge too. It means that we should have the knowledge, the content knowledge. When I say that, I wrote a book on engineering, it doesn't mean that I am a specialist in engineering. I, along with my colleague who is professors of computer engineering, we sat down and it took us 3 years to write the book. When I say that I wrote another book, which was sport management, it means that I, along with my sport management colleague, who is a professor in a sport faculty, we sat down for 2 years to write that book. Now, I, as the author of that particular or those particular books, I have the knowledge of the content. I can be the right person to teach that particular book. The reason is that I am coming from a general purpose of English, or it means that I have the general knowledge of English as well as the specialized knowledge of that particular course, then I would be eligible or right person to teach. If I get my colleague to go to the class, he might have a problem if he doesn't have the content knowledge. Or if you get me a book, English for a specific purpose, in law, do you understand it? In law, then
Doctor, yes.
I am not going to be the right person to teach them. Or mechanic engineering, I'm not going to be the right person. The reason is that I don't have the content knowledge of mechanic engineering, nor do I have the law content knowledge. Is that clear?
Yes,
That's
doctor,
very clear.
thank you, it's clear,
Oh,
thank
well,
you.
Yes, yes.
good one. Now let's get Mortaza to continue.
So sorry, doctor. Just
Yes,
for
Haydar, go ahead.
what does he mean? That specific purposes, like focus on occupations or the specialist of the person, like for
For
the
example,
specific
cook, being a cook, being a pilot, being what? Being I don't know which one. Can you name some of the professions or occupations?
Well, let's say like a mechanic, car mechanic, or engineer,
Yeah, this is what I said, mechanic or electronic engineering.
or IT, information technology.
Yeah, exactly, IT. I wrote the book in IT. Okay. Haydar, is that okay? Haydar, you're okay?
I got it. Sorry, I got
Good,
it. Thank you.
good. So the penny dropped. Mortaza, you go on.
Okay, doctor. Okay. Yes, competency-based language teaching, CBLT. Competency-based instruction is an approach, not a method, to the planning and delivery of courses that has been in whispered use since the 1970s. What characterizes a competency-based approach is the focus on the outcomes of learning. So what do we get from learning? What is the sake of learning? This is the way. As the driving force of teaching and the curriculum. The application of its principle language teaching is called competency-based language teaching. See appendix for on. Yes, because this approach seeks to teach the skills needed to perform real-world tasks, it became widely used from the 1980s as the basis for many English language programs for immigrants and refugees, as well as for work, repeated or related courses of many different kinds. It is an approach that has been the foundation for the design of work-related and survival-oriented language teaching programs for adults. It seeks to teach students the basic skills they need in order to prepare them for situations they commonly encounter in everyday life. So they want them to apply the theories of language or English language generally in their real life,
Very good.
the daily situations. I mean,
Okay.
yes, there are actually some programs here. There are 7 points appear here on the side. Number one, a focus on successful functioning in society. How do we functionalize language in society? How do we deal with language in society? Language is used for the sake of what? The goal is to enable students to become autonomous, it means independent individuals capable of coping with the demands of the world. Two, a focus on life skills rather than teaching language is in isolation. CBLT teaches language as a function of communication about concrete tasks. Students are only taught those language forms, skills required by the situations in which they will function. These forms are normally determined by needs analysis. The third point, task or performance-oriented instruction. What counts is what students can do as a result of instruction. The emphasis is on overt behavior, their conducts, their behaviors, rather than on knowledge or the ability to talk about language and skills. The fourth point, modularized instruction. Language learning is broken down into meaningful chunks, which is a very ample piece, which is a very big piece. Okay, the objectives are broken down into narrowly focused sub-objectives so that both teachers and students can get a clear sense of progress. Okay, just like a rank, in a rank way. 5. Outcomes are made explicit. Outcomes are public knowledge, known and agreed upon by both learner and teacher. They are specified in terms of behavioral objectives so that students know what behaviors they are expected of them. Let me, Doctor, please just turn the page.
Okay.
Yes. 6. Continuous and ongoing assessment. Students are pre-tested to determine what skills they miss, and post-tested after instruction on that skill. If they don't achieve the desired level of mastery, they continue to work on the objective and retested again. So it's a matter of progress till achieving the purpose-oriented or the task-oriented. 7. Demonstrated mastery of performance objectives rather than in the traditional paper and pencil tests, which they are very old. They seem traditional or old. For example, traditional grammar, which depends on written language. Assessment is based on the ability to demonstrate pre-specified behaviors. Page 80. Yes, the last point, individualized student-centered instruction in content level and pace. Objectives are defined in terms of individual needs. Prior learning and achievement are taken into account in developing curriculum. Therefore, CBLT is often used in programs that focus on learners with very specific language needs. In such cases, rather than seeking to teach general English, so we have to minimize the task of language here. And instead of maximize, we have to put task or purpose. What's learning language? to identify it briefly and generally. Yes. Shall I move to the next one, or do we have?
If anyone has question, please open your mic. Go ahead. If not, Mortaza, you can continue.
Yes, we can add something, Doctor.
Yes, please.
Yes, Doctor, we can say CBLT is focused on very special language, learner necessary to work with the particular context is the focus.
Ali Mohsen, can you repeat your question?
Yes, Doctor. We can say the CBLT is focused on a very special language, learners necessary to work in particular context.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, necessary to consider in a particular context.
Yes, or whether CBLT also, can we say, focus on developing the ability of use language?
But not necessarily for developing language, but developing the content, knowledge of content, a special knowledge of content.
Doctor, we can say as approach, seek to teach the skills necessary for the performance of global functions.
Ali, you're a
Yes.
bit mixing
May I add
everything.
Doctor?
Yeah, Mortaza, go ahead.
Doctor,
Yes.
Mr. Ali, I think the purpose of the CBLT here to minimize, not maximize the task of language for a specific purpose, not for general purpose. Language, as you know, is wide, has a wide scale or wide range. It is very, very intensive and very wide, very general. So we have to deal with it specifically and for a specific purpose of task. What are the task of skills that we need to learn here? What is the target behind learning those skills or qualifying?
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank-
yes, we can also say, Murtaza, excuse me, Doctor.
Youssef, what's wrong?
Okay, I have discussion, Doctor. That's discussion.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Doctor, we can also say CBLT is also built around the notion of communicative competence
Yep,
and seeks to develop functional communication skills
exactly.
in learners. It deals with context, not language, actually.
Deal with the context from which we can use language.
Content, yes, Doctor.
Okay.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
I have
Thank you.
a question.
Awesome, Jalil Hussein.
How this competency-based language teaching, how is it differ from the task?
Oh, that's a good question. Competency-based language teaching is different from task-based language teaching. Any comments?
Just in time, or there's a
Uh-huh.
I mean, the difference in task-based, there is a time, there is limited time, but in this, there is no limited time. So
Yeah.
is this
Yes,
the
you're right.
difference, or there is a, I mean, if there is any difference, please you can explain.
So, awesome. If you look at on page 79, you can understand the competency-based language teaching has the following features: a focus on successful functioning in society, a focus on life skills, task or performance-oriented instruction, modularized instruction. That's all about meaningful. And outcomes are made explicit, continuous and ongoing assessment, and demonstrated mastery of performance objectives, and individualized student-centered instruction. Can you see it? This is the feature of, these are the features of competency-based language teaching. And if you're going to see if it is different from task-based language teaching, so we should get to the task-based, then you would understand. We've got text-based instruction, then we've got task-based instruction. It is on page 89. So we should get to it, and then we can compare it. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's get back to Murtaza.
Yes, doctor. Yes, now we come to the content-based instruction, CBI, and content and language integrated learning, CLIL. Another need that emerged from the 1950s was a growing demand for courses that prepared students to study in English-speaking countries. In many English-speaking countries, such as the United States, Canada, Britain, and Australia, large numbers of students whose mother tongue is not English, international students, immigrants, need English in order to enter schools, colleges, and universities. So here, doctor, we use language for purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
And to follow content courses in English. This provided the motivation for our approach to language teaching, known initially as content-based instruction, CBI, and more recently referred to in Europe as content and language integrated learning, or CLIL. Richards and Rogers 2014 compare CBI with CLIL as follows. Both CBI and CLIL are part of a growing trend in many parts of the world to use English as the medium of instructions. They have features in common, however, they aren't identical. So there is a huge difference between them. They are not similar, they aren't identical. Each one of them has a specific purpose. CBI often involves a language teacher teaching through English, working with content teacher co-teach a course, or a content teacher designing and teaching a course for English as second language learners. CLIL often involves a content teacher teaching content through a second or a foreign language. So this is the difference between them. As does CBI, but also may involve content from subjects being used in language classes. That is, the CLIL curriculum may originate in the language class, whereas CBI tends to have as its starting point the goals of content class. CBI emerged or started somewhat organically, advocated by a number of academics and educators, supported by an extensive literature expanding over considerable period of time, but without official sanction. CLIL, on the other hand, so here we have the differences or variation between them. On the other hand, was officially proposed in a European Commission policy paper in which member states were encouraged to develop teaching in schools through the medium of more than one language. The acronym CLIL has been widely circulated within members of the European Community since 1994 and has become by decree the core instrument for achieving policy aims directed at creating a multilingual population in Europe. Yes, we have with both CBI. Of course, any language lesson involves content, whether a grammar lesson, reading lesson, or any other kind of lesson. Content of some sort has to be a vehicle that holds the lesson. So they are gathering together the lesson or the exercise together, but in traditional teaching methods, content is selected after, which is written in italics font here, after other planning decisions have been made. In other words, a grammar, vocabulary, text, skills, functions, etc. are the starting point in a planning. Content refers to the information or subject matter that learners learn or communicate through language, rather than the language used to convey it. Yes. CBI was also promoted. CBI was also promoted on the basis that it better supported language learning than traditional approaches. The assumption was that people learn language more successfully when they use the language as means of acquiring information rather than as an end in itself. And because CBI better reflects the learner's needs for learning a second language, in addition, content provides a coherent framework that can be used to link and develop all of the language skills. Okay. Yes.
Good one.
Any comment or question, or shall I move to theme-based language
Yes,
instruction?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, in content and language integrative, the goal, I think the goal of this approach is to master both language and content. For example, you can study geography in the target language, or mechanic, or engineering. So you, in this method or approach, you learn both, يعني, content and language, a subject in the target language. For example, to learn geography, history, or chemistry, but in the target language. This is the goal. And the teacher role here, I think, is guide, as the guide students with linguistic to appropriate prepare linguistic content, help learners say what it is they need to say by building a complete utterance together with the students.
Okay.
So the goal of this is to learn content and the language. It is different from CLT. Here we are going to learn content.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes,
Yes,
any
Doctor,
comments,
excuse me.
further comments?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, Doctor, thank you.
Yeah.
CBI, Doctor, CBI actually refers to an approach to second language teaching, in which teaching is organized around the content or information that students will acquire, rather than linguistics or other type of syllabus. So both learning activities are not much different, but but many differ in practice. In practice, because of the age of the learners and their other needs, Doctor.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Anyone wants to add something, or shall I continue?
Yeah, you can continue if
Okay.
Awesome doesn't have any further comments. Was that
Okay.
awesome?
Yes, yes, Doctor.
Tahir, do you have comments? Please.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Please.
I think both
No, no, no.
approaches, CBI and CLIL, both are methodology of teaching English.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
as a second language.
Yes.
Both focus on the ability of second language with learning content. In addition to the learning language and master it.
Yes.
They required, I think, open-minded and self-motivation to engage in the learning process.
Yes.
like academic achievement, for example.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Doctor. I have a question, Doctor.
Please, Yusuf.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. In both approach, can we say the teacher's role is to teach language as a skill rather than a content subject?
So content is content in both methods, or yeah, both ways are important.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Yes. Mortaza.
Yes, doctor. I'm listening to you, of course.
Good. Now I want
Yes.
you to continue.
Okay, doctor. Okay. Theme-based language instruction. Theme-based language instruction involves organizing course around a theme or topic, such as a sport or pop art, rather than around a language syllabus. Okay, I
Yes.
think that's a very clear point. The topics and themes are selected based on the student's interests and can cover either a range of different topics or deal with one or two topics in depth. This is the point briefly. The teacher uses the topic or theme as means of developing language and language skills. Although the course's content-based language development is still the main goal of teaching and assessment, rather than the content itself. This approach is more common in contexts where English is a foreign language and it is not widely used in the surrounding community. The course could be taught by a language teacher or in a team teaching situation with a content specialist. Sheltered subject matter instruction.
Exactly.
Sheltered,
To give you a hand.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was.
Good one. Hey there, you go ahead.
Thank you.
Mortaza, thank you very much. It was excellent.
thank you very much, doctor. Thank you very much, doctor.
You're welcome.
It was interesting.
Sheltered subject matter instruction. Sheltered
Mhm.
subject matter instruction refer to situations where students study content through a second language, but the classes is taught by a content instructor rather than language instructors. Instruction is sheltered because students are given special assistance to help them understand the content of the course. The content instructors adjust his or her teaching to take account of the student's language proficiency level so that the lessons are pitched to the student's proficiency capitali- capa- cap- capability. Sorry, the content itself however, is not changed or made easier on the assumptions that language learning will be facilitated by the focus on content learning. Sheltered CPL is more usual at universities and colleges where students are expected to study content
Ada, thank you very much
You are now muted.
course,
for your
doctor.
help.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
I'll try to explain it concisely, doctor. As far
Yeah,
as
yeah,
possible.
because yeah.
Text-based instruction, TBI. Text-based instruction, also known as genre-based teaching, involves explicit teaching of structure of different text types and an instructional strategy in which the teacher introduces the text, its purpose, and features together, and guides students through production of text through the process of scaffolding. Scaffolding, I think we explained
Yeah.
it in previous sessions.
Exactly.
Oh, good. This involves assisting the learners in the creation of text and gradually withdrawing. It's a very good strategy. It's gradually withdrawing teacher support until the learners can create their own text, just like the case or the state of driving or learning driving. So when I wanted to learn driving, somebody, of course, a professional one, is sitting beside me until I'm okay on the ride.
Yeah.
Say,
A driving teacher sits next to you and then help you.
Exactly. It is similar to this point. Teaching is organized around a sequence of text types related to the learner's needs, and learners are given practice in performing different kinds of texts until they can produce them without the teacher's support and guidance. TBI is an approach that draws on the field of discourse analysis and genre theory, like most methods and approaches. What is the aim of it? It aims to prepare learners for real-world uses of English by focusing on how language is used to achieve different purposes. So we have achievement, we have purposes. Why do we use language? This is the main task. Yes. In language teaching, the text-based approach owes much to the work of the Australian School of Applied Linguistics, drawing on the work of Holiday. Today we discussed Holiday in Language and Linguistics by Dr. Firin, Christophes and others, and has had a considerable impact on both first and second language teaching in Australia and New Zealand. The model of language a text-based approach draws on is known as a systemic functional linguistics. We have a systemic functional grammar and we have systemic functional linguistics. And the main concepts of this functional model of language are that there are three categories or 3 points. Language can be understood as a resource we use to create meaning. B, language makes use of series of interrelated systems that users draw on each time they use language. C, texts are the basic units of communication. D, texts reflect the context in which they are used, their purposes, and the participants involved. Yes, the text-based approach has had an impact on both the teaching of English for specific purposes, this is a very important point, as well as English for academic purposes. So they are gathering here simultaneously. So both of them are available here. Text in this approach is hence used in a special sense to refer to structure sequences language that are used in a specific context, in a specific way. For example, in the course of day, a speaker of English may use a spoken language in many different ways, including the following. What are they? Casual conversational exchange with a friend, conversational exchange with a stranger in a lift. They are daily situations in life. We can use them or we can have them. Okay. So a telephone call to arrange an appointment at a hair salon, an account to friends for an unusual experience, discussion of the personal problem with a friend, to seek advice. In the case of writing, common texts may include sending email messages, updating a blog, writing a note teacher, and so
there are a few different ways in which we can help our students writing.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you come down, we've got a
Yes.
question. Think of learners studying English for a specific purpose. What text types do you think they will encounter? This is what you would reflect on this question, and then you would write it down. Then I would check them out. And we've got on page 89 the Singapore English language syllabus.
Yes.
And everyone knows that how strong Singapore in terms of education is. And we've got the following text type, like conversations, short functional text, explanations, expositions, information reports, narratives, procedures, and recounts.
Yes.
These are all personal, factual, and historical. This is what in Singapore, they are all practice. And, why Singapore has got a strong education, one of the reasons is that they have budget, or it means that they put budget on education a lot. They ask a lot of education experts around the globe to sit down in their Ministry of Education. It was in 2003, my professors, Professor Alan Look from Australia, he was the head of the education project in Singapore, and then he was inviting worldwide experts from Harvard University, from Singapore, from Auckland, from Vancouver, from Simon Fraser University in Canada, from Queensland University of Technology in Australia, from University of Sydney, University of Melbourne, from Hong Kong University, and they all sat down, and from Auckland in New Zealand too. And they all sat down, and then they put their heads together, and then they work on the Singaporean education for 3 years, and they lifted up the Singaporean education. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands Chinese and Japanese students studying in Singapore. There are probably several hundred thousands international students in Singapore, and they've got a strong education system in Singapore. Yeah, that's all about it. And next week, we're going to consider task-based language teaching.
Okay, doctor.
Yeah, that's going to be for Prop Ho, the
Okay,
forerunner in
okay.
task-based language education. And if anyone has comments or questions, please. Does anyone have comments or questions for today's discussion?
It's all clear, Doctor. It's all clear.
Good,
Thank
good.
you. Thank you too.
Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
If you don't have any comments or questions, I can wish you to stay safe and stay healthy and enjoy your evening and look after yourself, everyone. Let's call it a day. Thank you, Murtaza. Thank you,
Thank you,
Haydar.
Doctor. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your contribution. And
Thank you,
take
Doctor.
care of yourself, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye for now, everyone.
You have a good day, doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay small, doctor. You
You are
didn't
now
say that one.